Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. We leverage our social media platforms to have discussions and to create space on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan, support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We have one scheduled to drop this upcoming Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 12 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we've provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les meufs et les mecs. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is mental health, and I want to continue the conversation that I started this week on kindness and how that plays into our mental health. And in today's segment, I want to talk about what kindness is and what kindness isn't. And of course, this can have many layers and flavors, so I'm going to be talking about it from my vantage point, because I do believe, as I said in my initial video, that kindness is strength. Choosing to respond with kindness or choosing to not respond from a place of kindness takes self-control, it takes self-mastery, it takes a lot of strength, especially when you would much rather respond in a different way. So I think that for me, kindness has been a journey because I'm comfortable actually not responding with kindness. So I've mentioned before, I was always a child filled with energy. I've always been very strong-willed. I was always more mischief than manners growing up. And as I grew up, I started to really, take some of the things that I was hearing constantly more seriously. And one of those things was you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And I want you to think about the kinds of things that would come out of my mouth for me to continuously receive that feedback. And I think that it's very important that we recognize that when someone is choosing to respond with kindness, especially in a situation where they have every right to respond by being hostile or by being vile, that is strength. That takes a lot of strength and self-mastery, and it took cultivating that strength and that self-mastery. All to say, I think for some of us, if we're on the opposite side of the spectrum where we're learning to take being nice and needing to be seen as nice and needing to be seen as kind to a completely different level, where when the situation does call for us to be more direct or more assertive, we're unable to do that. And I think kindness is a nice blend that includes being assertive, being direct, and choosing that style of delivery when the situation requires of it. I think kindness, it gives you the ability gives you the choice to leverage which one of your emotions the way that you want to. Your emotions are not the master of you when you respond with kindness. You are the master of your emotions. So let me quickly just jump right into it. And I have 5, and I think I might do more videos on kindness and what it is and what it isn't, because I think that it's an enigma. I think a lot of people don't understand what kindness is, and that's why they mistake it as weakness. And I trust and believe I am not someone who I would never define myself as a weak person. I would consider myself to be personally very strong, as well as being very strong-willed. And kindness for me is a practice that not only fuels and feeds my soul, but I think that it really does just create healthy dynamics, and it really diffuses unhealthy dynamics as well. And because I'm all about my peace and protecting my peace, I always choose to respond with kindness as my first, second, and third option. I think kindness can be responding with silence. And I think that what people don't understand is when someone chooses silence from a place of kindness, and you can't know if it's a place of kindness or something else, but for those who are unsure, if you're not getting a response at all, when you're looking for a response and maybe you've been antagonistic, or you've been hostile, or you've been, covertly hostile, it's been a bit of a tricky dynamic, and then someone's deciding not to respond, that's strength. Because I think that if there have been things that have taken place that require or that would rationalize or justify a response, especially a response that isn't so kind, then I think that one should understand that kindness is coming from a place of grace, right? So choosing to say nothing can be the most gracious thing that you can do when you have nothing good to say. And I have learned in my life that when I have nothing good to say, I would much rather choose to say nothing at all. And that's very important. And also when it comes to feedback, and I think that a lot of culture plays into feedback and how it is that I personally view feedback. I have always recognized feedback to be a privilege. It is not a right. It is not something that you can ask for. It is something that you can hope to receive. And if I feel so inclined as to give it, then I will. But I think that kindness is something that enables me to dictate, like, in what cases am I going to give feedback? Do I feel like I have enough relationship to give the kind of feedback that I feel is warranted based on the questions being asked? And a lot of factors play into whether or not I will give feedback, or if I'm open even to receiving feedback. And a lot of it is built on relationship, on dynamics, and on trust. And if any of those things don't exist, then you're not going to get the feedback, the candid feedback that you're looking for. And I've realized that there's so many different cultural approaches to feedback, but as a Canadian, feedback is a privilege. If someone gives you open, candid feedback, regardless of how you feel about that person, it's gold, right? That feedback means a lot, but you can't expect it, right? That's something that you have to do something in that relationship, in that dynamic, to earn. It is not something that you can just ask for and hope to gain. So that's all my first one. It's on conversations, it's on responding, and on also choosing to respond with silence is also being an act and a gesture of kindness. Now, my second element as to what kindness isn't and what it is. So kindness is not being passive, right? So kindness is a very, very active choice. And I think that when it is the case that, maybe the situation is like very hostile, it is very aggressive, there's a lot going on, and it's like calling you to behave in a way where you're pulling yourself out of character, and you have every reason to pull yourself out of character, like you're being insulted, you're being degraded, like there's so many things happening there, and you choose not to bring yourself to that level, that is kindness. But not just kindness for the person that you're choosing not to respond with the same energy towards. It's kindness for yourself, because you are deciding that their words have no weight, and it's better for the both of you to disengage. When we take someone's hostility and react with hostility, in that interaction, we're internalizing the things that are said and allowing those things to root into our spirit. So oftentimes when it is the case that I'm being met with hostility, and it's like I feel myself getting triggered, like, okay, like I'm getting angry, like these things are offensive and are upsetting me, but I'm choosing in that moment to not respond, to not like bring myself to that level and to respond in kind. For me, it's one, because I know that I could, and I could probably, hold my weight in that conversation. I could probably say things that were equally hurtful, but I also know that that doesn't serve me. And at the end of the day, like if this relationship or if this dynamic is in such a state where that kind of interaction exists, then those relationships have no value to me. So there's no reason for me to put any energy into it. And I'm not gonna like have a moment of self-gratification by viewing negativity that's going to like lower my own vibration. So I'm not going to do that. But that takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of strength to walk away when like hostility is like asking you for action. And I think that those people need kindness, like people who behave in hostile ways, they need kindness in that moment. And I think also you need kindness in that moment as well, like to preserve and maintain your state and your sense of self in that situation as well. So I think that that's important. But what kindness isn't, it's not tolerating, right? Kindness isn't tolerant. And I think that oftentimes kindness is misinterpreted as weakness because it doesn't follow up with consequence. For me, kindness is the first act of grace, but there will always be consequences to the actions taken that might warrant a shift and change in dynamic. So I think that just because someone responds with kindness does not mean that there are not going to be consequences that come thereafter. And like for me, if I'm responding with kindness, if I'm choosing to meet hostility or overt or covert aggression with kindness, if I'm choosing to be quiet, if I'm choosing to be still, if I'm choosing to remove myself, I'm also choosing the consequences, right? So the consequence could be simply me removing myself. And I think that someone might say, well, that's not really a consequence. I think that someone engaging in bad behavior in a relationship is seeking attention. It is energy and attention-seeking behavior. And I think that the biggest consequence that you can give someone for that kind of like negative attention-seeking behavior is to just give them no access to it all. I think that that is the appropriate consequence depending on the escalation of the behavior as well. But I think that consequences are so important, and consequences also are what demarcate from being kind and being nice. Also the fact that being kind it's coming from a place of self-love, of self-assuredness, of confidence. It's not coming from a place of requiring approval and validation from others. And that's super important to recognize. The spirit of kindness is also a spirit of strength. It's a spirit of confidence. It's a spirit of knowing your worth and knowing your value and not letting people pull you out of your character, whether it's because they've deflated you and made you feel lesser than and made you feel like you're not worthy, or whether it's because they're calling you, to behave in ways that you're going to regret later on because you want to respond and give a couple of words back, right? Or to fight back because that's what the energy is calling for in that situation. But I think in both those cases, choosing yourself is choosing to do what is the best for you. And in both of those situations, the best thing for you is to remove yourself, right? Those situations don't serve you. And I think that oftentimes when we're in situations that make us feel devalued, or we're in situations that are really triggering us, and we are justifying why we should stay in those situations, I think that in and of itself is unkind to yourself. I think that enough cases that take place where you feel devalued or you feel like they're trying to make you feel unworthy, or if you're feeling like they're really trying to antagonize you and poke the bear and have you act out in ways that you feel are not going to benefit anybody, then those situations require removal, and that is the best consequence for everybody. I think that for me, distance in response to disrespect. That's an act of kindness for myself and for the people around me. And disrespect is something that I have zero tolerance for. But I respond with kindness, and I think that that's what people find confusing because they tend to think that disrespect requires an action. There's going to be a relay, and that's if I play into it. And I'm not going to play into it because typically disrespect for me is a signal that this relationship no longer serves me, and it's time for me to find myself elsewhere. And lastly, what kindness isn't. Kindness isn't passive aggressive, right? So kindness isn't trying to get under someone's skin by being kind. You're not doing it as, weaponizing kindness. And I think that this is something that some people do, right? Like if you're a master of relational aggression, you use kindness to mask hostility, right? So I think kindness isn't masked hostility. I think kindness is really just asserting your ground. It's anchoring yourself in place, and it's making sure that your boundaries are articulated. And that's it, and that's all. Nothing more needs to be said. But sometimes people kind of take it to the next level and they learn how to weaponize kindness. And that's not what I'm advocating for here. I'm not advocating for that. That's its own form of relational aggression. We've all seen the Mean Girls movie or understand the Mean Girl tropes. And I think some of us have been that mean girl. I mean, maybe I'm speaking too broadly. I mean, I've been that mean girl before in the past, like when I've learned to be more instrumental with hostility, when I was in my phase where being hostile was the way that I felt I needed to heal and the way I felt that I needed to express myself. But now in this current stage of my life, kindness really for me is a place of feeling grounded and centered. When I feel grounded and when I feel centered, I can respond with being kind. Being kind isn't difficult, and it's not a weapon that I use to cut my enemy or cut my opponent down for size. It's really just a way of making sure that I stay aligned to my highest self. I am behaving in alignment with my own standards of myself, my own expectations of myself in that situation or setting. In any case, those were the 5 that I wanted to discuss today. If I quickly sum up, kindness is not passive aggressive. Kindness is not weakness. It's not seeking approval. It's not really bending over backward to try to get people to like you. Kindness isn't weakness in the face of hostility, in the face of people raging against you. Kindness can be silence. Kindness can be deciding that this is a situation where, not providing your feedback is the kindest thing that you can do in that situation. And kindness is also creating distance in response to disrespect. A lot of people consider that to be weakness. I say no, that in and of itself is an act of kindness for yourself and also for the people who are seeking attention in negative ways. Hopefully that distance will give them an opportunity to think about their behavior and decide how to show up better in the future relationships that they will most assuredly form. Now that was it for today, but definitely not all. Now before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above these events. So we invite you to join our hashtag Game Changer community, being the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. We are on the road to 1K, so definitely leave a like, follow us across all of our social media platforms, and we look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.